Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. How's things?
Good. We've just been talking about which books of yours we would that I would recommend to people to start your vast array of them.
All right, great. Which did you recommend?
I think Kill for Me, Kill for You is my favourite.
Right.
But I said I love the Eddie Flynn series, but I feel like you have to start from the beginning and go all the way through for them. Like it's too much character development to not read them in order.
Oh, I don't know. They're all written so you can read them in any order. They're all written so that you can pick up any one you like, and you won't feel as though you're missing out. If you do read them in order, yes, you'll have maybe a different journey and you'll see how characters develop, but they all work as standalones, I say. But yes, you can read them in any order.
Yeah, because I feel like that's why I sort of cried at Witness 8.
Right.
I'm not going to say too much because a few of the guys haven't read it yet.
Okay.
But yeah, there was just, you probably know which point when there was a bit of a close call.
I know.
And I was like, no.
I've made a few people cry over the course of my career.
It just means your writing's very good, that's all. It's very rare I cry at a book.
Is it?
I've sobbed at one book and then I've teared up at a couple.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. What was the one book you sobbed at?
It's not one of yours.
Right. That's okay. Doesn't have to be one of mine.
It was a romance book. Like, yeah, I would call it a romance book.
Right. Well, which one?
A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole.
Right. I don't know that one. That sounds good, though. Sometimes it's good to have a book or a movie where you can get a good cry.
Yeah, it was a really, really sad story, but like I use romance as like a palate cleanser because I am a crime and thriller girly.
Right.
So, but yeah, a lot of the guys have sent me some questions in, so I'm hoping it's okay for me to just start firing questions at you.
Work away, of course.
So the first question I wanted to ask you was, where did you get your inspiration from for Eddie Flynn?
Eddie Flynn. I was sort of thinking of a character that I could write about. And I remember that I cross-examined someone one day and I sort of tricked them into telling or revealing that they were lying, put it like that. And it sort of struck me at that moment that con artists and trial lawyers have all the same skills: distraction, persuasion, misdirection. And because I've been studying advocacy, I'd done an advanced course on it run by the National Institute of Trial Advocacy in Boulder, Colorado. And so we had really deep dived on it. And I'd read lots of books about great advocates and their techniques and things they used to do. So they just struck me in that moment. And I thought that would be a good idea for a character, a con artist who used to be a con artist who became a trial lawyer and uses all those same skills. Because I thought it was a good crossover.
I just love everything about Eddie Flynn. He's just so not corrupt, but like just some of the things he does where he bends the rules. I just think.
Yeah, you'll always do the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
That's the thing. It's making sure that he's doing it not just to better, because he doesn't do it to better himself or benefit himself. He's always doing it to save someone else. The series has the idea that the justice is imbalanced, particularly in America. The scales of justice are weighed very much for the state. And Eddie uses dishonest means to sort of balance those scales.
And I know somebody else did ask about the Eddie Flynn series. Do you have an end planned in mind, which came with a hopefully not? But
No.
if not, do you just intend to keep writing Eddie Flynn until you feel like it just comes to a natural end?
I'll just keep writing them as long as the books are good. The main thing is the quality of the books for me. As long as I can keep the quality up, I'll continue writing them, because we all know there are some series where the quality does sort of tail off. You know, there are some series where you could pick up the 17th book and it's just as good, if not better, than the 6th book in that series. And so it's as long as I can maintain the quality. And what I do sometimes is, instead of writing an Eddie Flynn that year, if I have a good idea for a standalone, I'll do the standalone instead. And that sort of keeps it fresh for me. And I learn a new skill doing a standalone. I'll learn something. I'll have done something I haven't done before. and then I'll try and use what I've learned to bring that into the series. So as long as the books, the quality maintains, then yes. So there'll be a new Eddie Flynn next year,
Oh, that's
and I'm an idea at the moment then for another Eddie Flynn after that, I think.
oh, brilliant. Around what time next year is that due? Will it be the summer again?
Yes, that will be in July. It's available to pre-order now um, on the Amazon site. I don't know if it's available to pre-order anywhere else, but yes, you can pre-order it. Eddie Flynn #9. It's just called now. I do have a title, but I'm not allowed to tell you what it is.
Oh no! So does that mean it just literally says like Eddie Flynn #9 then when you
Eddie
try?
Flynn #9 available to pre-order.
Oh wow. That's very, very exciting. Because obviously, you've just talked about your standalones there. Obviously, Kill for Me, Kill for You is my favourite standalone because it's something very, very different to what I've read. Just generally, because obviously when you read a lot of crime and thrillers, you see a lot of similar twists come in. But with that, I just did absolutely not see that come in. And it is, honestly, I still think about that. And I read it because I met you a couple of years, well, about a year and a half ago with that book. And I read it straight away after I'd met you. And I still think about it 18 months on. It's the one book I recommend to people straight away when they want to get into crime and thriller but don't want to start a series.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It is. I read that so quickly. I was absolutely gutted. I read it as soon as it had come out because then I was like, I have to wait another year for another book.
Ah, yes. Well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you to say. I'm very glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, and I think that one worked out quite well. Kill for Me, Kill for You. I don't know if you've read Strangers on a Train. That's the book that kind of inspired it.
Ah, that's interesting.
Because the original story was by Patricia Highsmith. Her first novel is called Strangers on a Train, and it's two men who meet on a train in a carriage, and one of them wants to murder his father, who's rich and is cutting him off from his allowance, and the other one wants to murder his wife, and they sort of talk about this, and you get the idea of exchanging murders. So if I killed your wife while you're at some gala, you've got an alibi. You killed my father while I've got my alibi somewhere else. It's a perfect crime. No one knows we've met. And Highsmith sort of thought, well, I don't. She wrote it. It was her first book. It's great, but she sort of thought, well, it relies on a huge amount of coincidences. That there's two blokes who just happen to want to kill someone, and they just happen to be in the same carriage, and they tell each other. There's too many contrivances there, and her book is based on a short story, which is kind of the same, very similar. It's a story in Black Mask magazine, which was sort of the origin for a lot of crime fiction in America. So I thought, well, I could maybe try and do my own thing with it. So if you're not interested in or getting the book, I would definitely recommend Patricia Highsmith as an author, particularly the Ripley books, which are fabulous. But I would recommend even watching the movie. You probably watch it on YouTube or something for free.
I thought when you said it, I recognised it as a film. I hadn't realised it was a book, so that is really, really useful. And it does actually lead me nicely into another question that someone asked. What is one crime and thriller book that you would recommend? Because I know you love, I asked in August, I know that you love like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, so I was just intrigued to know about what crime and thriller book you would recommend. But I'm assuming it was Strangers on the Train.
I could be Strangers on a Train, yeah. I would actually recommend, if we're going to go Patricia Highsmith, I'll give you a few recommendations. If we're going to go Patricia Highsmith, I would recommend The Talented Mr. Ripley. If you've seen, Netflix did a series on it. It's a guy called Steven Zalian, who's an amazing screenwriter and filmmaker. He's been involved. Not too many people follow screenwriters' careers, but if you look at that guy's credit list, it's some of the most amazing films. He wrote Schindler's List, and he worked on an amazing number of movies. But he wrote and directed that series, and it's one of the most amazing looking TV shows I've ever seen. And every single frame of it is like I could freeze that, hang that on a wall. It's so gorgeous looking. So I would, yeah, and it takes its time. It really it's a real slow burn. So yeah, I would say Patricia Highsmith, Talented Mr. Ripley. I would also recommend John Connolly's Charlie Parker series. If you like crime and thriller stuff, if you like sort of Chris Carter, who's very popular now, his books, start with John's first novel, which is called Every Dead Thing. I think John is an amazing crime writer, and just as good as I would say as Thomas Harris. So any fans of Silence of the Lambs, get Every Dead Thing, and there is a slight supernatural element to that series. It is crime fiction. It's a private detective who who's investigating different cases, but the supernatural element of it adds a real amazing sort of extra element in it. So you'll be quite frightened at parts as well.
I see a few people in the comments sort of agreeing with that as it's rolling. Someone asked me, what is your must have reading or writing snacks?
Snacks. I'm trying to cut down on snacks as I'm writing. Mostly it's just coffee, but I did used to like biscuits. So if I count biscuits, I quite liked, and just the humble digestive, I think does a great job. And they're not. I don't dunk a digestive very much. That they're not up to that. But
That's a very Yorkshire thing, is a biscuit in your cup of tea.
biscuit in your brew, yeah. You would need a hobnob or something a bit more formidable for that.
Well, yeah, that's also very true.
Yeah, something like that.
The next question I wanted to ask was, someone has asked, do you ever get into a writing slump? And if so, what do you do to get out of it?
I very often find myself in a writing slump. That may also be my default position. I write the first sort of third of a book very quickly. And then I go back over it and rewrite it and rewrite it. And then the middle of the book is a real slog. And sometimes I get very stuck. And if I get completely stuck and I can't move forward, that's usually a sign there's something missing from the book so far, or I haven't got something right earlier on. So that's a sign for me to stop what I'm doing and go back and read over what I've got and have a bit of thinking time. I sort of write on. Some writers, do it this way. Other writers have different techniques. Some writers just start at page one and go right the way through and don't look at what they've written. They do a vomit draft, something like that is what they call it. And then they'll do multiple drafts. There are writers that throw away their first draft completely and start again from a blank file, which I couldn't do. I just tend to have the one draft, if you know what I mean. But I've gone over it, and polished it and tidied it up and worked on it, maybe, 20 or 30 times. But to me, that's still one draft until the whole thing's finished. Then I'll do another draft and then it's ready to show people. So, but if I get stuck, it's normally a sign I'm not happy, there's something not right. I need to go back over and have a bit of a think.
So how long does it take you to write a book? So say, for example, you've just released Witness 8. How long did it actually take you to write that?
Witness 8 took about 9 months. They all take different lengths of time. You would think they would get easier. I think they get harder. So the book that's out next year, I'm still writing it. That one is going to take a full year for that. I wrote a book called 13. I wrote it in 2 chunks. And the total writing time was 6 weeks. But I wrote the first half of the book in about 3 weeks, got completely stuck, didn't write anything for about 3 months. Just went over that first bit and banged my head on a wall for a while, and then figured out the problem and wrote the rest of the book in another 3-week chunk.
Wow.
It just depends.
That's amazing. 13 was actually the book that I started reading that got me into reading your books.
Oh, wow, thank you. A lot of people first came to me from 13 or 50/50. But see, you can start them in any order.
Yeah, and to be fair, this makes me sound terrible because I obviously rave about your books to a lot of people, but I read quite a lot of them out of order, and then I was like, oh, I've read all your books, I own them all, and then realised that there was the defence.
Right.
So I was like, how did I miss one? But yeah, it was your first book, and I just got really lucky. I did manage to get it on my Kindle, read it, and then I bought it at a later date because obviously the collection needs to be complete.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
But yeah, someone else did ask as well. So obviously you introduced Mr. Christmas into Witness 8. So for those that have read the book, they'll know who that is. Do you intend for Mr. Christmas to ever make a comeback?
Yes, but not in the next book. He's such a wonderful character, I think, for me anyway. I really enjoyed writing him. So he may return at some point. I think he probably will. Although I can't envisage uh, a, a scenario or a story yet where he might return, but I do intend to bring him back at some stage. I had the idea for Mr. Christmas about 3 years before I wrote that book, and he just arrived in my head fully formed, and I was waiting for a chance to bring him in, and so I had to wait a bit of time to put him in a book initially, but he's still he lives in my head, so he'll be coming back at some stage, but not for a while.
And the other character people really loved and wanted to ask about a comeback was Ruby.
Ruby. Um, what I do is sometimes I at the end of my books I will leave. I love a crime book where all the main story elements are all tied up, so you know what happened, you know how everything played out. But sometimes I'll leave it on like a little, really sometimes a melancholy note. Sometimes there's something else that's going to happen. Sometimes I leave that to reader's imagination. Sometimes I will give you a clue later on in the next book, and it'll be one line, which if you've never read any of my series, you'll read that and it won't mean anything to you. But if you've read the previous book, it will. Doesn't affect your enjoyment of the book that you're reading at all. But you'll think, oh, I know how that was tied up. I know what happened there. But again, I don't know if I'll bring. I think Ruby's sort of story is complete in some ways. I wouldn't rule out bringing her back.
I loved Ruby as a character. She was just absolutely bonkers.
She was bonkers, yes.
So obviously you've mentioned Eddie Flynn #9 comes out in July. Have you got any other standalones planned?
I have an idea for another standalone, but I don't know if it's a book, if it would work as a book, or if it would work better as a movie. So my plan is when I finish this next Eddie Flynn, I am going to write a couple of screenplays, and I'm going to write that first as a screenplay to see how it works, because it's an unusual situation for me because I know the ending of that story, and I never normally do know the ending. But I know the ending of that, and I'm thinking, because it ends on a massive twist, like it's a real heart puncher, and I'm thinking, would some readers love that? I think so. Would some readers feel devastated at the end of that? Yes. So I don't know if a book is the best thing for it. So I'm going to write it as a screenplay before the end of the year, and I'll see. It might be a book.
That's very exciting. That's just made me think of another question though. Is there anything in the works in terms of like any of your books becoming series or films?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I can't talk about a lot of it. But Eddie Flynn is in active development.
Oh wow.
And I can't say any more about that. I'm quite confident that will get going quite soon. I'm hopeful. Another one of my books is in the works as a movie, and that takes a little more time, I think. And that's not quite far ahead as the Eddie Flynn. So, yes, there are things in the works.
That has caused a lot of excitement in the comments. I think as readers, we spend so much time, like there are so many series that comes out and then you see that like, oh, it's based on a book. So then immediately for me, I go and read the book before
Right.
I go and watch it, because I sometimes find that I use The Girl on the Train as an example. So I read the book by Paula Hawkins probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. And I watched the film and it was nothing like the book. And I just like creating the pictures in my head. I don't know about anyone else, but I always picture the book. And then sometimes if you've watched the film first, the book is kind of ruined in my opinion. So I think a lot of people will come back and read your books if they know it's in the pipeline.
Yes. Oh, please do read the books. Yes. Don't wait for the TV show or the movie. Read the books. But yeah, that can be the case, because reading is that you're creating everyone's image in your own head, and sometimes completely on your own. I haven't told you in particular really what a whole lot of people look like. So they're very particular characters to you. And then when you see the TV series, sometimes you think, well, that's not the character that I had in my mind. Or if you watch the TV series and you read the book, you think, I'm not, yeah, you're using the actor's image for the characters that you're reading. It's a weird trick like that. And sometimes an adaptation can affect a book. So there was a series on ITV called Inspector Morse with John Thaw based on Colin Dexter's books. And after that TV show started airing and becoming popular, Colin Dexter changed the books, changed the character of Morse to be more like John Thaw in the TV series. So even writers can be influenced by TV. That's why Ian Rankin's never watched any of the Rebus, and there's been 3 series now. I think he's watched some of the later series, but yeah, he doesn't want to be influenced.
That's fair enough, because I know like Harlan Coben's had a lot of his recreated as well, and I think it is hard, I suppose, as an author, when you've written this book, you've probably had an image in your own mind as well. Because do you have any control over anything like the casting, etc., when it comes
I have no control. No writer does really. But I'm a part of the team, if you like. So I have a voice, and we'll see. It's a weird thing, adapt, because TV's a very different medium, and I don't think you know until you're in the process how different it is and what changes need to be made. Sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for weird reasons, but they all kind of make sense for transferring it to a different medium.
I'm finding this very fascinating, I'm not going to lie. What made you decide to write crime and thriller and not a different genre?
I loved crime and thriller stuff, and that's what was my favorite. I think I do like some fantasy books, quite a lot of fantasy books, but I didn't feel able to try my hand at that. Crime and thriller fiction was my first love from Silence of the Lambs, when I read quite young, and then I devoured particularly American crime fiction. So that's what I wanted to try when I came to writing. It was what I most loved to read, that genre that I wanted to, and I felt I knew more about. That's what I wanted to try.
And does that mean when you are writing a book, because obviously you've said the process is quite long, do you not pick up a book by another author in that time, or do you just end up reading loads to try and get inspiration?
Oh no, I read. I always read. Less and less these days. It's just because of time, because I'm so busy these days with lots of different things. But so I don't get as much time to read as I normally would. I know there are some writers who don't read and can't read when they're writing because they don't want the other writer's voice to infect their own. And that's perfectly valid, whatever works for that writer. But I enjoy reading. I like reading. So I'll always read.
On that then, what is your current read?
My current read, I'm actually rereading Salem's Lot.
Ooh.
Because I haven't read it in years, and there's a new movie of it coming out, which looks really good. So I just thought, oh God, I should have a go at that. So I haven't read it in a long time, and it's really scary. So I'm currently reading Salem's Lot. I'm really enjoying it. For a vampire book, there's a long time before you get any whiff of a vampire in that novel. The first sort of 100 or so pages, it's King building that town. It's a brilliant thing he does in his fiction. He builds the real world so convincingly well that when that world sort of pulls apart and the supernatural world comes in, it makes it all the more convincing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's a wee bit like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, before you go to Narnia, you have to have the real world and you have to build the wardrobe before you go through, and that makes it all the more wonderful, you know. So that's King's real skill, is building an ordinary world and making it so vivid and then breaking it into something terrifying.
Ash has just asked, I'm assuming the fact you are rereading it, that you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's great. I love Stephen King. He's a really, really gifted, brilliant writer, and underappreciated, I think, in I know it's a strange thing to say for one of the most prolific writers, but yeah, I think he should get a lot more kudos than he does. He's so skilled.
Fabulous. That is all the questions that I've been asked in advance. However, because there are quite a few people in, I want to see if anyone has any questions in the comments for you.
Great. Have a look.
But I think a few have popped up, but because the comments have been streaming the whole time we've been chatting, I think I may possibly have missed some, but I know a few people had. I think I asked this in, because you did do another Q&A last month, but I did want to ask about sprayed edges just while the comments are coming in. Do you have any sprayed edges in the pipeline? Because they seem to be such a thing at the minute. I just wondered if there was any plans for you to get any of your books with sprayed edges.
I don't know. I have had some books sprayed edged in the past. Twisted, yeah, has that orange one. There was another one. Was there another one? I can't remember. There might have been.
Aha.
There you go. Was that 50-50? Yeah, there you are. So I have had that. I haven't had the really cool ones. There are really cool ones. I don't know. Plans are at an early stage for the new hardback in July. So maybe I wouldn't rule it out. I do like a sprayed edge myself, but they are quite expensive. So there'll be a conversation to have about it.
I do feel like now, though, they seem to be like, the last couple of books I've bought have had sprayed edges, and I know the works in particular, I don't know if that's, because I think I've only ever seen one of your books in the works. They seem to be very much on with getting sprayed edges at the minute, so I don't know if that's anything you find out or you speak to them about, but yeah, I don't know where they get their sprayed edges from, but they seem to be very much on point.
The works of sprayed edges. Right, that's interesting. Okay, I'm glad you told me that.
I think Frida McFadden's had a recent release that is a sprayed edge, and also Bill Wood, who is a fellow book talker, has got one as a sprayed edge. I don't know where they source them from, but I just know they seem to have so many sprayed edges in at the moment, and they seem to be exclusive ones at that.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Something. Out of all your books, what book was the best book to write?
Oh God. Probably 13, I think. With that even with the terrible thing in the middle, it still came quickly, and there were no huge errors in it. It needed very, very little editing. That one was probably my favorite to write. 50-50 was tough to write, really tough. There's a postman's going to be here, and my dogs are going to be barking. Nothing I could do about that. Yeah, 50-50 was hard because there's different narratives in it. There's Kate and Eddie, and then there is the book basically is about two sisters, and one of them has killed their father. But you don't know which one, and they're both on trial. So there is a narrative point of view simply called She, and it's one of the sisters who is the killer, but you don't know who it is. Can you give me 1 second?
Of course.
That's so awful. 1 second.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay, for the gifts. Oh gosh, guys, thank you. Someone's asked a question I can answer while Steve just hops away. Oh, thank you for the gifts, guys.
Hey, sorry about that. Otherwise, the dogs are just going to go crazy there. Yes, so what was I saying? Yes, so getting that right, the She character, and not letting it on who it was. So the way I wanted that book to work was you read one chapter and you think, oh, it's Sophia. She's the one, she did it. And you read the next chapter and you think, oh no, hang on, I've got that wrong. It's Alexandra. And you wanted you to be flip-flopping.
Yeah.
Because there's only two
reading
suspects.
that. I was so confused reading that, like, you thought you'd nailed it. And obviously you were going to get it right, but obviously I wasn't going from chapter 2, oh yeah. Like, it was still right to the end, and I'm going, wait, I know I've got it, and then I hadn't got it. And obviously, if I'm right, 50-50 was the introduction of Kate, wasn't it? Because she came from a different company. And that's sort of when Eddie and Kate then sort of merged and have now joined forces, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that was just an introduction of a new character as well to take in. But yeah, I've still, to the last chapter, I was still going, what? But like in a good way, it was like, I honestly don't know what's going on here, but that's because it is just, you can't tell which way it was going to go.
You can't tell which way it was going to go. Interesting, I laughed at some of the reviews for that. Some people said, I guessed who it was. I thought, do you know what? You had a 50-50 chance of guessing who it was. You guessed. Yeah, good on you. It was a guess, though. You
Well,
didn't
exactly. You
know.
knew who it was going to be, but you just didn't know like which who. And
You,
I just
you
think
didn't know
that's an
which
important part to
sister
say
it's
you
going to
didn't get
be.
it. Yeah,
Yep.
I
You
don't think
pretty
so.
good odds of guessing, I have to say.
Exactly. Someone has just asked, at what age can people read your books?
Um, I think you'd be all right at, I would say around, 12, 13.
I say
Easy
they're
enough.
not graphic.
They're
But
not
they're a
really
typical
graphic.
like crime thriller. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
feel like
And
I
there's,
can't say I've read them and
I
gone
don't,
to.
there's no, there are no sex scenes or anything like that in my books, really. It's, I think you'd probably be all right.
Ryan
12, 13.
asked me, "Do you ever come back to Northern Ireland as we want a book signing?"
Do I ever come back to Northern Ireland?
I
I,
thought you lived there.
I live in Northern Ireland and I regularly do book signings. I don't know. No Alibis bookstore in Belfast is my home store. So David Torrance runs No Alibis. It's one of the very few dedicated crime and mystery bookstores, and probably the oldest in the UK. So I do my signings there. Um, you can get signed books from
You
David.
move around a lot. Like I've noticed when you've done your last two tours, they've literally been top to bottom island. You've literally been everywhere.
I try to get around. Yes, and that's on top of me doing everything else. So last year I was just looking over because I'm looking and see where I was looking at my expenses for the year. So I was in this year. I've been in Barcelona, Amsterdam. Last year I was in Germany. Been in the US. And then lots of other places as well. And Budapest I was in the year before. So I get around. So we're probably planning a tour for America next year, and for the UK as well for the new book.
I'm hoping you still tally it around the time I am off work.
It will be starting probably, if the book's out on a Thursday, towards the end of July. We'll be starting on the Monday and then going through for 2 weeks. So last week of July, first week and a bit of August, I would say.
Yeah, because that always works well for me because I always struggle to get to Arthur events because they always do them on a weeknight but never local to me. So I'm not near particularly any Waterstones or anything like that. So Meadowhall is actually my local. I drive quite a few miles for that. But it's always in school holidays, so it works really well for me because I work in a school. So it's
Oh,
always
great.
nice to be able to, it's actually really nice to be able to drive over, even though it's like a 35-mile drive, but it's a nice drive. And I have friends that live over that way. So we always end up coming to see you in Meadowhall, which is really nice.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much.
What unusual thing inspires you to write? Something weird or quirky?
I don't, money. Not really unusual, but yes, money and Her Majesty's Revenue Commissioners are great motivations for artistic endeavour.
I can answer Ashley's question. Witness 8 is part of the Eddie Flynn series. That one I can answer. Have you ever been starstruck by meeting another author?
Loads of times. Yeah. Um, First time I met Lee Child, it was just, I don't know, if you've never met Lee Child, he's incredibly tall, and he kind of just has this walk. He's like he's one of the coolest people I've ever met. He's like a movie star sort of a guy, and totally down to earth, super lovely and incredibly generous. So I was been starstruck meeting him, starstruck meeting Michael Connolly for the first time. Who else? Oh God, loads. Dennis Lehane. Well, that didn't go very well. Meeting Dennis Lehane. Um, it was at Harrogate. I'll tell you the story quickly. I was at Harrogate Crime Festival, and Ellie Griffiths was the chair that year. And whoever's the chair has to put on there's like a murder mystery dinner at the Harrogate Crime Festival. So they have some authors who sit at tables, and then they have some authors who they sort of put on a bit of a costume type thing, and they have a script, and they do a bit of acting. It's for the murder mystery dinner. So and you had to work out who was the killer. So she wrote this murder mystery, and I was playing a character who was very very loosely based on a former U.S. president with very strange blonde hair. I'm sure you can work out who that is. So Ellie had bought me this big wig, right? And I was standing outside. It was after the event was over, and I was standing outside having a pint with a friend, and a guy walked past me out of the hotel down the hill, and I thought, God, that wee guy looks like Dennis Lehane. And my friend I was with said, that is Dennis Lehane. I thought, God, I have to say hello to him. So I went up to him and stopped him and said, oh, hello, Mr. Lehane. And it was only when he turned around and he looked at me that I realized I was still wearing the Donald Trump wig. And he had his hand out, and I took his hand, and then I realized this, and I thought, oh, shit, what am I going to do here? And because I thought, see, if I had hair, I could take the wig off and say, by the way, that's not my wig. But if I take a wig off and I'm bald, and I say, that isn't my wig, you say, well, what's your normal wig? What wig do you normally wear? So I sort of told him that I was a huge fan, and he was sort of quite frightened. As I just left the wig on, I thought, fuck, I'm not going to start explaining all this. And I let him go, and he ran down that hill like he was about to be shot. But yeah, so I did frighten Dennis Lehane a little bit.
I think anybody would dress like Donald Trump, though.
Mm-hmm. That's funny.
I think you've sort of half answered this, but what's your favourite book written by another author? But you've sort of answered that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably it's Lord of the Rings is my favourite. But yeah, lots of good crime stuff out there by loads of people.
Can someone please ask if that is a picture of Alfred Hitchcock on your wall?
It is. I have a lot of Hitchcock stuff. So yeah, there's another one of Alfred, and that's Shadow of a Doubt. And this is still from another one of my favorite movies, The Producers, with Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel, which is a comedy. But yeah, I have lots of Hitchcock stuff. I'm a big Hitchcock fan.
Ashley has asked, I need a book signing in Dublin, please.
Yes, I try to get around Dublin and get around stores. So I would normally try and get to Hodges and Ficus in Dublin and a few of the Eastern stores. But it's always a bit rushed. But I'll do my best to try and get a proper signing. Apparently book events in Dublin are a bit difficult. But I will do my best to try and do more of that.
Would you do a spin-off series of any of the side characters from the Eddie Flynn series?
Yes. It's something I've thought about. Again, I'll never rule it out. No immediate plans. Would quite be interested to see a spin-off book of Gabriel Lake teaming up with Mr. Christmas.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
That would be funny. That would be fun. That would be a really good book. Or it'll be fun for me to write. I don't know what it would be like to read. But yeah, something like that. Or Block and Lake doing something.
For me, Block's character is just so well written. Like you can't help but love Block because the lack of like talking, but actually action is just purely the way Block works, and I just absolutely love that character to no end.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad you like. A lot of people like Block. I like her too. She's good fun to write.
Oh, we've got a lot of laughing faces. I'm guessing that's from the Donald Trump story. Was there any picture evidence of you dressed as Donald Trump?
Apparently so. Somebody has a picture somewhere of it. I didn't have to hesitate to say I didn't have the full suit. I just had this. The wig was good enough, and you only kind of saw me from here up when I was doing my acting bit, so I didn't have to go full suit. But I think there is somewhere. Yeah, I don't have it, and I wouldn't post it if I did.
I'm guessing nobody else has posted it because I feel like for people that particularly love your writing will probably notice something like that being posted, especially if you're getting tagged in it. And
yeah, there's some. I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Cue everybody Googling it. Did you always want to be a writer?
Um, yeah, I think I did, but I never thought I could be a writer. So I really didn't start. I tried writing screenplays when I was younger, before I qualified as a lawyer. That didn't get anywhere, and I stopped, and I didn't start writing again properly until I was a lot older. So yeah, it was something I always wanted to do from a young age, but never thought I could because nobody from my background was ever I'd ever heard of being a writer before, and I didn't think that I would have the education or the ability to do it.
And on that, do you have any advice to budding writers?
Yes, read a lot and write a lot, and the more you do both of those things, the better that your writing will become.
Um,
Someone's bringing me Viscount biscuits. Cheryl Edgar, thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
I want to start the Eddie Flynn series. Where is the best place to get it from?
To get it from anywhere you like. If you read on audio or Kindle or whatever, and you can start wherever you want. Witness It is the latest book. You feel free to start there, and then if you like it, go and read another one.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I think because I'm just a bit, now I know it's a series when I was not naive 5 years ago.
Some people are like that. Oh no, I have to start at book one, and oh, otherwise the universe is not correct. And I know what you mean, but from my point of view, and I've heard Michael Connolly talk about this as well. I think I'm a better writer now than I was when I started. So I don't think the defense, as much as I really like that book, and I know a lot of people do like it, and it's some people's favorites. That's not my best work. It took me a while to learn. So I'm always have that slight, oh God, there are better books you could start with, and I've heard Michael Connolly say the same thing. So it's up to you. And I know a lot of people who I have to start at book one. There are some series where you really should start at book one. And I think definitely the Charlie Parker series is one of those. You get a lot more out of it, and it's such a massive, intricate world. So yeah, but mine you can start anywhere. Yeah. But I understand the sentiment of no, I have to go from book one on.
I mean, to be honest, this is me being completely honest. I think I still rated it 4 stars, so it's not like it was terrible. But The Defense is actually my least favorite of yours.
Right, you see, right. Some people they're still their favorite. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it, but
yeah. Oh no, I know. It has its charms. That book. It goes like hell. That book. It doesn't. It just starts at 90 miles an hour and stays there for most of the book. Whereas I learned to sort of have, more of a lull and an undulating story and drop tension and raise tension. I learned later on.
Yeah, I feel like your character development comes in a lot, and I think a lot of people appreciate that, especially because I find it's quite difficult to put into a crime and thriller to have that character driven, obviously without it not still being the quick paced book that you want in a crime and thriller. But I do feel like having that series, it just brings you back a bit from everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
I do find that. In terms of finding series, I'm pretty certain Waterstones and Amazon definitely have it.
Yeah.
You can get Kill for Me, Kill for You in the works, and at a bargain price at 3 for £6. So you can get it for £2 or £2.50 if you only get 1 out of 3 books there. I've answered that. Cheryl, I've just got to the comment about bringing you Viscounts. Lindsay says, 13 was the first book I ever read from you and I loved it.
Thank you.
How much say or input do you have regarding the design or look of your book covers?
Well, it's a team effort. And sometimes I'll see something, I'll have an idea and I'll say, great, let's do that. Or sometimes I'll have an idea. So it's just whoever has the best idea wins. But I do have input into it, which I'm very grateful for, because your book, I think initially my books, I wasn't crazy about the first few covers that went on them when I was first published. and the sales definitely back that up at the start. So the covers have been redesigned many times. All of the UK covers are all going through a redesign at the moment. So 13 and 50/50 have been released now with the new covers. We are trying, I've seen 2 weeks ago, I seen some of the rest of them, and some of them still need a bit of work and some of them still need changed, but we're getting very close. So we're going to have all the books will all be redesigned covers.
That's exciting because it means I will own double the amount of books.
Hey.
That, I know this might seem like a bit of a daft question, but like in terms of the release of the new covers, does that mean that when you actually put them all next to each other, will they all match up?
They will all match up because a lot of them don't at the moment. They will all match up. So there'll be the new font that's on Kill for Me, Kill for You. It'll be that sort of thing. And yeah, that it'll work. Actually, I can show you. Give me 1 second.
Oh, this is exciting.
So these are the new designs. So that's 50/50
yeah.
and 13. So they still have a little bit. As you can see, they look like they're written by the same guy. These ones, whereas the other ones don't immediately jump out like that. So yeah, I thought both those covers had strong concepts, which we kept and just giving you a facelift. And the other ones will have different images and stuff on them. But as you can see, it does look more like a series.
Yeah, like it's small little things, isn't it? Sometimes, like obviously depending on the title of the book, it's like your author names, it's the same, and it is hard when you get well. Oh no, they're not. Oh yeah, no, some of them must be coming out at the bottom. But yeah, that just means I own double. But my actual copy of 13, so this might hurt some people's feelings. But the pages are actually starting to fall out of this book.
You need a new copy.
I think it's because I've owned it that long for one, but two, oh gosh, I've actually made it worse opening it. I lent it to my dad and he took it abroad. And I think his son, I'm assuming, because the last couple of books I've lent him for holiday reading, he's brought back, the pages have been falling out. So I'm assuming it might be the heat.
Could be the heat, or could be your dad.
Or it could just be my house, I don't know. I doubt it is the house because there's only like 2 or 3 books that have done it. But yeah, so I think it is just time I replace them all.
Be time. Wait till they all come out. It should be another couple of months. I'm hoping. Hopefully before Christmas they'll all be out.
I will tell my other half to buy me them for Christmas. He's probably sat in the comments somewhere, so I'll tell him to buy me them all for Christmas. I like both, but the new ones are definitely better for the new covers. There's a lot of love going for that. Jane says her copy of The Wire is also falling apart. But yeah, I think, yeah, everyone knows me so well. Jade, I will need them all signing.
Yeah, of course.
Next year I'm going to apologise in advance when I come to you with like 20 books to sign.
That's no problem at all. I seen there was a question. Was there a question there about the cross?
Has it hopped?
Oh, hang on. Where does the cross fit into the series? Mel, crazy for books and coffee. I just saw that because there is maybe a bit of news, and it's something that is an exclusive. So I wrote my first book's a defense, and the cross is currently an ebook novella only in the UK only, and that is a prequel to the defense. Again, you can read them in any order. But that one was written after the defense, but it's probably after I'd written the plea, I think. But that's a novella. It's a prequel to the defense. But that will be out in audio book this year at some time. We're going to do the cross in audio. For anyone who likes audio, Adam Sims is going to record that, and I'll have more details on it shortly.
Oh, that is exciting. I also wanted to ask, so obviously you see a lot of people, especially content creators, that have like received PR boxes. Do you ever get a say in things like that, or is it your publisher?
No, sometimes we get a say in what goes into the box. but we don't really get a say on who gets it. Sometimes there was some people will say, "Oh, we'll give a list in sometimes," and sometimes they can manage it, and sometimes they can't. But it's not up to me who gets them, unfortunately.
Oh, heads to the publisher in July. It's just always exciting when a new book comes out, especially in a series that you're invested in. And yeah, I always get so jealous of seeing other content creators that just are like, oh, look, I've got this box. And I'm like, yeah, that should be me.
Well, you get in touch with Headline and see if they can help you out.
Perfect. Ashley's also said he will be on the beg.
Yep, go ahead.
Jane has asked, will you ever do a physical book of the cross?
I don't know. It's only about half the length of a normal one of my books. It's about 45,000 words. So that may be tricky to do that. Again, never say never. There might be a way to get it into print some way, but there are no immediate plans for that at the moment.
And Sarah asks, has anyone in your real life inspired a character you have written about in your books?
Yes. So Eddie's secretary in the books, who comes in a little bit later on in the series, Denise, is a real person, because Denise was my secretary when I was practicing. So because she read the books and really liked them, and she said Eddie needs a secretary. I should be a secretary, and I said, do you want to be in the books? And she said yes. So that is her, and that is her character completely. So yes, Denise is very much based on a real person.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. Oh, my comments have just jumped. Where do I find out about Steve's upcoming book signings? Well, you post them on your accounts, don't you?
I post them on my accounts. I do have a Substack called Steve Cavanagh Readers Club. If you put in my name, Steve Cavanagh, and Substack, you'll find it. And subscribe to that. And I will post, and so you can't miss. I'll say, here's the tour dates, here's where I'm going, here's all the links. I try not, it's like my newsletter, and I try not to bombard people with it, only when I've got good news or here's a good thing. So you won't be bombarded with emails from me about what I've had for my dinner or anything like that. So if it's something I think you might be interested in, I will send it to you, so you'll have it in your email.
And if obviously he's just mentioned there putting it on the socials, obviously TikTok account is literally here. But you do also have Instagram, don't you? Which if you follow me, we tag him all the time. So just follow him from there. I think most people that follow me on TikTok do also follow me on Instagram, and I have obviously you've seen yourself that I've tagged quite a few times. Do you listen to music while you're reading or writing?
Sometimes when I'm writing, yeah. I have a Spotify playlist, which is all sorts of eclectic stuff on it. Some classical, some soundtracks, some bands, some particular songs, which just get me in the mood for writing. I don't know why, but they just seem to switch something on in my brain. So, yeah, I do.
I'm the same when I'm reading though. I have a lot of we have lo-fi on, so I do reading sprints on here as well, so we'll read for 20 minutes, chat for 10, and I always put on music in between. I used to be able to only read in silence, so if anyone had any sound, the TV on in the background, I could not read, whereas now I have to have music playing somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, and it's really far. It's come from being on TikTok, and it's because a lot of the guys that do lives and things where you come in and read, a lot of people did it, and then I think I just got used to it, and then I was like, actually it's very quiet now. So it's the same for me, and I'm very productive when I have audiobooks I didn't used to listen to until recently.
Excellent.
So Ashley says he has TV shows or movies on. Jane asks, who proofreads your books?
Okay. So there's the structural edit of what is the story. I'll do 2 rounds of edits for that. So there'll be maybe 20 drafts of the book. My wife will read it. I'll do another draft. And all the time I'm proofreading. Then there will be a copy edit. So the copy editor is looking very, very particular things, continuity, things like this, and grammar. So it'll be proofread through that. Then I will proofread it. And my editor in the UK will have a proofreader read it. I will get sent their comments and notes, I will proofread it again. They will proofread it again. Then on top of that, my US editor will proofread it. My US copy editor will go through it. My US proofreader there'll be two different proofreaders will do two different proofreads on it. There are about 100, on average, between 100 and 110,000 words in my book. Let's say on average 100,000. It's entirely possible that one or two mistakes will be made. That if I can get, 99.99999% accuracy, that's scientifically good enough for me. Even though it's had all of those proofreads, invariably one little two little mistakes will get through. That's such is life. No one's perfect, but they are proofread exhaustively. So there you go. It's the best I can do.
I can't say I've ever noticed any errors in your books, but I have in the past.
Well,
you do
have.
errors.
I have noticed loads, but there's nothing you can do about it. That's just how it is. The new editions have caught some of those again. So, yeah.
I feel like I might have to reread them now just to check.
You may do.
Ryan asks, what's one genre you enjoy that we wouldn't expect you to, and do you have a book recommendation from that genre?
Yeah, I would say fantasy. I was going to say romantic comedies, but I haven't read one of those in a long time. But Bridget Jones's Diary is one of my very favorite books. But I would say fantasy. I would say read Legend by David Gemmell, if you like fantasy books. It's actually really weird and slightly disappointing because I read David Gemmell for years. He died about 10 years ago now. But the British Fantasy Awards are called the Gemmell Awards. And people will know, oh yeah, he got a Gemmell Award, but they won't know who David Gemmell is. And if you go to the bookstore now, a lot of bookstores don't even carry his books. So read David Gemmell. The first book's called Legend. And if you like that, you'll probably like a lot of his other stuff.
The comments just jumped. Jane asks, why did you base Eddie in the US?
I love American crime fiction, and it means my character doesn't have to have a wig and a funny gown.
Fair enough. The question I was going to ask you has just completely gone out of my mind. I feel like we've already answered this, but it might be that Shannon wasn't here when it was answered. What got you into writing?
Reading got me into writing. I always wanted to tell my own stories, but it took me a while to get there.
Well, that's quite an interesting question by Ryan. Is there a big discussion around AI in writing and publishing, and do you have any thoughts on its impact?
I don't use AI. I know a lot of people are getting AI to write books and throwing them up on Amazon. But I don't think a lot of people will want to read them. I don't use any AI in my books. There's no AI used in my covers. Some writers are afraid of AI. I'm slightly one of them, but I don't think it's really because it's going to replace writers at all. I don't think it will. But it is scary for other reasons. I know there are some people who use AI for analytical purposes and things like this. I think it detracts. My own personal view is I think it detracts from things. So, for example, say you had to write an essay about Genghis Khan for school. Yeah, you might write an essay. If you got AI to help you, essay might be better. But I think the journey of going and finding out about a historical figure, say, it doesn't matter what it is. If you could be writing a recipe, writing an essay, or learn how to do a spreadsheet. AI can teach you, help you how to do all of these things, but you detract from the journey and the struggle of actually figuring all that stuff out for yourself. And I think the difficulty that you have, and maybe the frustration you have in doing that, you learn and take a lot from that. And it may not be what you take from it is who Genghis Khan was or what the recipe is. you've been through that journey and that struggle, and that in itself is important for you to have had that, and you learn a lot and take a lot from it.
So Ryan says, based on that, because you spoke about obviously proofreading, do you think AI would solve any of the issues around missing sort of grammatical errors, spelling errors, etc.?
No, because AI isn't grammatically very good. Have you ever read anything by AI? It sounds like it's written by a robot. And I wouldn't want my writing to sound anything like what a robot is. There's some discussion in relation to, because my books have been scanned by different AI engines. And I know that the Society of Authors is challenging, has written to different AI companies who have done this to say this isn't on. I personally don't think it's on, but I don't know what's going to happen with it. But I don't think anyone could write, an AI machine could write like anything but a pastiche of any living writer.
Well, both Nelly and Jane have said AI takes away human/individual creativity, and there's just no emotion in the reading, which obviously as a reader, we want that emotion, we want something very different, and it, like you say, AI will just bring out something. You probably just you're going to read it like that, aren't you, like robotic and etc. I did remember my question, and we will call it the last question because I am aware it is 3 o'clock. Obviously, as a writer, do you get sent advanced copies of other authors' work? If so, what are the current sort of books that you've got, and what are you excited that on release for next year?
I have recently been sent a load of proofs, none of which I've got anywhere near yet. And there are some I'm absolutely busting to read. From my Dutch editor, from my publishers in Holland, sent me the new George Smiley novel written by John le Carré's son. And I'm a huge John le Carré fan, and I'm busting to read that, and I can't get near it yet because I'm too busy finishing off this book. So yes, I think that the new George Smiley novel will be out soon. And if you've never read John le Carré, I would heartily recommend it. You could start a spy novelist, but a brilliant novelist, and no matter what the genre. I would recommend starting with Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But yeah, there you go.
Fantastic. So I think a lot of people in the comments will agree, but I just want to say thank you very much for giving up some of your time to come and chat to us. It's no secret I'm a fan.
Not at all. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been really fun to do this. I'm sorry I had to nip away for the dogs.
Don't apologise. It's absolutely fine.
These things happen in life.
It's part of having pets. I don't actually have a dog, but my sister does, and I know how sensitive my sister's dog is when anyone knocks on the door when we have her, so I know it's not easy. Yeah, everyone is just saying thank you so much, and I think it might have just helped a few more people go and take a bit more, and I'll have to go and pre-order some of your Eddie Flynn number 9.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone who's tuned in, and thank you so much for hosting this, Kitty. I really, really enjoyed it. It's been a real great pleasure. I now have to go and play ball because there's a little... Will you see this? This is what I have to deal with, right? This is why some of my books are slightly delayed.
Oh, but look.
I know. You want our ball now? It's playtime now.
Well, thank you so much for taking taking time out of your busy schedule. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not at all. All the best, folks. Thanks. Bye.